What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? Hope you are doing well today. Thank you so much for tuning in here with us again, whether it's good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this or listening to this. Really appreciate you tuning in, and again, looking forward to really putting a bow on the season. I think that we haven't really had an opportunity yet. Obviously, we did kind of a season recap, but that was before. That was actually right in the middle of the ACC tournament. So, that was, after, what happened in the ACC tournament. That was, that we hadn't had a chance to talk about the NCAA. I hadn't had a chance to talk about who's left the team, kind of talking about next year, things like that. So we figured that we again just put a nice bow on this and just kind of wrap this thing up as we head into next season. And what better person to do that with than I would say easily and almost inarguably the biggest Pac-9 fan out there, and Justin Cooke here with us today to put a bow on this. So Justin, really appreciate you tuning in with us, my friend.
Thank you all very much for having me.
Absolutely glad to do it. So again, kind of talking big picture stuff at first, because I know this is a huge question for all state fans right now, and because it's really something that I would challenge anybody to show me a situation that's similar in the fact of how we've had 4 different situations where we got publicly acknowledged as screwed, but starting with how the College World Series was handled last year, and then with the Holiday Bowl in December, and then with the women's basketball playing the number 2 seed in their home state, and then lastly with that we didn't make the NCAA tournament after making it all the way to the ACC championship, and also too with the fact that every single mock draft or every single mock whatever tournament had us in the tournament, and also too because because I know that Michael actually told us this, but typically for as a part of the guidelines in terms of the NCAA picking the brackets, they use D1 baseball's bracket usually a pretty much a big deciding factor, in terms of we'll kind of use that to kind of base our picks off of, and they had us in. And so it's just it's crazy to think about that literally within the last 365 days that those 4 things have happened. And so, I mean, the question really just comes down to, and it's really the name of this episode, which is, does the NCAA hate NC State? Like, I mean, what other explanation could there be? And the fact that, I mean, literally we got screwed. I mean, I'm assuming hopefully some of the NCAA decided like, yeah, I don't know if we handled that correctly. And they could have thrown us a bone at least, even though I don't even think we needed the bone, put us in the tournament this year. Now, I mean, obviously Ole Miss has gone as far as they did all the way making it to NCAA championship. So, I mean, I'm glad that, good for them. But yeah, I mean, what are your kind of overall thoughts on that? I mean, it's unprecedented.
I mean, I think the reason why I think Grand Canyon got in was because some teams they beat earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they beat some decent teams at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of these, Florida State, I think, made it because, well, they beat us in the regular season 2 out of 3. I think that helped them get in, too.
Yeah.
But I think going in to that game on Sunday, from what I was told from media people and people I know, we were in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Monday morning, we were in the tournament. Even at 10:25, I got a message from one of my baseball friends who's not a state fan, but he's just a baseball fan. He told me basically Ole Miss wasn't even in the tournament. And then 5 minutes later, he sent me a message saying Ole Miss was getting in.
Wow. Well,
something happened.
Well, and again, because literally after the Miami game, I remember there was fans that were commenting saying, "Are we still in the bubble?" And there was comments left and right, including mine, saying, "No, you're locked into the tournament."
No way.
Even after the Miami game. So, and
I got messages saying we were in the tournament.
Yeah.
Even after Miami game.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, something happened between then.
It was so almost obvious that, Jonas Pope, who I love, he covers NC State. He dropped an article Sunday. I think it was either Sunday night or Monday before the tournament announcements were made, and he was like, "Okay, State's, the ACC tournament's over. Now we just wait to hear where we're going." I mean, that's how confident the media was that, we were going in. And then after the fact, D1 wrote an article about, NC State being the biggest snub probably in the last 20 or 30 years for not making the tournament.
Yeah.
So,
So again, I mean, just looking at, I mean, that one situation, but again, you add those other 3 situations and how all of them, are that it's publicly known that there's no reason whatsoever. It's common sense that why would you not just flop Baylor with UConn, put UConn as either the top 2 seed or even make them a 1 seed and then put Baylor with us, and then we play Baylor in Connecticut. Like it's just common sense.
Yeah.
Like, again, like nobody would have argued that if they would have flopped
No.
Baylor and UConn. Nobody would have argued that. And
Yeah.
then like same thing with the College World Series. Again, it was just it's last year. It's just that has its own whole conversation, which has been conversated to the bone. So go ahead, Michael.
And what's weird about the regional stuff too is you have going into that night they're saying Notre Dame maybe not getting a regional, which was crazy. And then the day of the regionals being selected, you see them going to the number 16 seed regional, which you knew something was up when that happened.
Yep, absolutely.
But none of us thought it was going to be the way it was.
No.
Yeah, and in almost every single circumstance, there's like a common sense thing that the NCAA could have done that, like you were saying, like nobody would have argued the other way, and it could have been very easy to do. And for whatever reason,
Louisville go there.
Yeah, Louisville.
Exactly. So, but again, at the end of the day, it's frustrating because I know that a lot of state fans are really looking to boo right now, obviously, as being basically the in between person between NC State and the NCAA, being like do something, like help us. And it's we were kind of talking about this a little bit off air, but obviously, again, just as a reminder again, is that everybody should know that, again, we were 100% spoiled with what we had with Debbie Yao, and the fact that she was not a person that she didn't really hold her cards really that close to her chest. You knew pretty much openly what she was doing, what she thought, what she was going to do. But that's not typical. Again, most athletic directors are not like that. And so, Boo, I think, is more of your general, athletic director in terms of, they don't really say a whole lot because they're, not trying to piss anybody off. They're not trying to piss NCAA off, but also they're not trying to rile up the fans, and riot them or whatever it may be, just it's a preference thing. And so, the only thing which we can say, and the one thing which I would say is something that I think can easily be done, but something which I think needs to be done is that there's no reason whatsoever why every single conference shouldn't have, at least the major conferences shouldn't have representation on the NCAA board that makes that decision. For the fact that literally we got left out and there was not an ACC representative as a part of that group is a huge red flag. That is a huge head scratcher.
And Rutgers too. Rutgers didn't have a Big Ten. Big Ten didn't even have anyone on the committee too. So Rutgers got left out because of that too. That's 2 big teams that should have got in, but they didn't have nobody on the board.
And you could argue too, honestly. Yeah, you can honestly argue that the Rutgers snub was probably almost as big. I mean, they literally had the best season in program history in terms of Rutgers baseball, and yet they didn't get in even into the tournament. That's crazy.
45 wins.
45 wins. That's crazy. So, Michael, were you saying something? Go ahead.
It just doesn't make sense that that's not already like a standard rule. That like when I heard that was possible, that there weren't a representation from at least the major power conferences. Yeah, that blew my mind too. That's just not standard.
Exactly.
No, I'm okay with everyone having a seat at the table for these committees. They need to have the big boys need to have their seat at the table. Let's be honest, they're the money drivers in all of these sports. But because there's so many baseball teams out there, because they combine both FBS and FCS into Division I baseball, those other guys absolutely let them have their seat at the table. Expand the committee, and just make sure that we're doing everyone. Make sure they're doing their due diligence and that everyone's getting a fair shake at the table. So I think there's nothing wrong with inviting more people to have
because unfortunately too, I would say that baseball specifically, because like one of the kind of the points that that is being made in terms of expanding the college football playoff, for example, is that if you expand to like 16 teams, what are the odds really that 16 or 15 team really is going to win the national championship? I mean, not very much. I mean, again, those top 4, top 5, top 6. Those are going to be the guys that are more likely going to win a national championship. But literally, here we are, and this year specifically, Ole Miss has an opportunity in the championships to win a national championship, and they were one of the last 4 in. Last year, we were a team that was kind of on the bubble that made our way in, and we were heavily favored to win it all. I mean, I don't think anybody wanted to face us. Mississippi State even openly has said like if we would face you guys, I mean that it would have been a tough series. Let's put it that way. They wouldn't have. I think we would have given a better shot. So that's why I say that unfortunately it's a lot more pressure to make sure that you get it right, and that you have it's clear as day that why you did not get in. It's not this whole, well, we use series wins or whatever to go into. It's like, since when? It's like and like they said, like your out of conference schedule is not good. Well, again, our RPI, we were like what 35th, I think. Something
like that.
So we're top 40 in terms of RPI. So again, it's just like it's invalid. It's invalid points. Even Debbie Allen, the goat herself, even has said no. There's no. There's no strength to that argument whatsoever from the NCAA. So again, that's kind of the problem. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
I think, who cares about your out of conference strength of schedule when your overall schedule strength is 36th overall? Like, what does it matter? Because we know the ACC is going to eat each other when you get to conference play. So it's going to be a grind. So you want to kind of pad your resume, if you will, a little bit with some easier wins. Sure. And the one thing in baseball is it's a very regional sport when it comes to those midweek games. They don't have the travel budget to go play a Southern Cal, out in California on a Tuesday and then be back for a Sunday or a Friday game against Duke. It just doesn't happen that way. So, I mean, you're kind of stuck with where you play at if you want to break it down in that regard.
And we swept East Carolina.
That was huge. Yeah.
It's a perfect
Georgia Tech.
Yeah. So
we beat Wake Forest and Miami in the ACC tournament. We saw how good they can be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just
on neutral
fields. Yep. Right. So that should count.
Some of these teams we beat ended up being like top 16 seeds or making them deep runs in regionals and stuff like that. So
well, because it's really overall a thing, just like you were saying, Greg. That again, it's not like that. Most schools have ridiculously hard out of conference schedules. Typically you're playing your local schools. Like this year, we played High Point, we played UNCG, we played UNCW, we played pretty much all UNC Charlotte, I think so. But again, we played all local. Yeah. But again, that's pretty typical for most baseball programs. You're not necessarily seeing usually a lot of Vanderbilt versus Mississippi State out of conference. You don't see that a lot in out of conference games because again, most of the times they're worried just primarily on the in conference. So again, it's just it doesn't make sense whatsoever. And because also again, it's baseball and the fact that it's a huge recruiting thing too. That's why I would say honestly, it's I'd rather just play local because if I can go to UNCG or if I can go to UNC Charlotte or if I can go to UNCW and get some eyes of some recruits here in the North Carolina area, then I'll take that all day and twice on Tuesday, because at the end of the day, I'm confident enough in my in-conference schedule that that'll carry me whatever way it needs to. So, but, so kind of jumping over now, talking a little bit about last year. And so obviously, ended the season 36-21 overall, 14-14 in conference, 22-7 out of conference, 22-10 at home, 11-10 away, and 3-1 neutral sites. And so, Justin, one of the questions I wanted to ask, because we talked about this on a live stream after the championship game, but it's a glaring thing in the face that, I remember somebody commented saying that Avon's got the perfect job. And the fact that, he does enough to warrant that, that you're not going to fire him. But for any other coach, if you told any fan that has that loves their baseball program and has high has expectations for their baseball program, that you have a coach right now that has lost, I think it's 6, 7, 8 ACC conference championship games, and you have not won a single championship game. That's a huge glare. Now, again, I'm saying you're not going to fire Avent, but what I am saying is that's a hard number to work around, because then you got to hang a banner eventually. Getting College World Series is amazing, it is, but you got to hang a banner eventually. You know what I mean? So, what are your kind of thoughts on that, Justin?
My thing is, in 2021, when we lost, you're playing a very hot Duke team at the time, which, I mean, that was a great pitching game and defensive game.
Right.
And then go to regionals. Duke pretty much laid an egg when they played in the regionals. But again, that was a tough regional they had to go to.
Right.
And then this year, you play Carolina, another team that was playing hot at the time.
Right.
Against a team that's battling for their lives. And then you got guys that are pitching their what's off for us that, in my opinion, probably shouldn't have pitched that Sunday game.
Right.
You probably should have saved them in case you make a regional. And also, if you're going to do what we did with Chris Villeman, you probably should have started him. Because that was pretty much the start.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
That's nothing against the guys that pitched before him. It's just they pitched their what's off way before that game, and their pitch counts were up high.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably had no business pitching that game just for health-wise.
Absolutely.
And for regionals and stuff like that. But we're very close.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's a frustrating thing in the fact that, again, you have so many games now that you can make these statements saying, man, we were so close to, like, if this would have gone our way, that it would have happened. But specifically looking at that Duke game last year, that with how much firepower we had in the batting lineup, it's super frustrating. And again, you just have to look and go, what was the problem that we literally couldn't get a single run from Austin Murr, Johnny Butler, Terrell Tatum, Devontae Brown, JT Jarrett, Luka Tresh. You had all these guys that could swing the bat, and you couldn't get one run against Duke. Like, it's because, I mean, the pitching did their part. And I mean, because you could argue, especially last year, that the batting was our strength, because, I mean, we had a lot of depth at batting last year. So, again, it's just, and again, for us to give up the inning like we did against Carolina and then almost panic a little bit, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Like, UNC's killing us right now. And honestly, I felt like we were never going to get it out of that inning.
Too,
Go ahead, Justin.
Going to that too real quick. Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Going to that
please.
too is, I mean, I think if the coaches probably knew what they knew now, like we were in trouble making the tournament, they would have handled it a lot differently.
That's true too.
Yeah, too. And then now going to the Duke game, Duke's pitching like a fifth or fourth year senior who's basically been there, done that, and then they got a freshman who was pitching his off out of the bullpen for them last year. So I mean, it's just one of those games where you got to tip your cap to them, where they just had better game than we did.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, in a 1-0 game, obviously the pitching was amazing on both ends. Going back to obviously to the Duke game last year, and we had a chance. We had a chance to tag up at third and score a run in that game, and we were a little hesitant. And I think, again, looking back, I think Coach probably knowing if it's going to be a 1-0 game. He probably would have ended up sending him, but because it was a little earlier in the game, they probably didn't want to,
where
risk
the ball
it.
Was hit at too.
But and where the ball was hit
exactly.
at. But and so pitching is the great equalizer. If you got a pitcher who's on his game that day, it only takes one, and they showed that. And you can make the same analogy in hockey. If you got a hot goaltender, you got to get one past them, at some point. So. You can't win if you don't score. So if the pitcher holds you to 0, good chance you're going to win the ball game.
Exactly. So, So again, it's just one of those things that, again, it's not a conversation of if you're going to let Avent go. It's not even a conversation. Some fans are saying that's a conversation. That's not a conversation. But it's definitely one of those things that, again, I just want more than anything that for Avent to hang that banner, because, again, just give me one. Again, I don't care if you go 1-8 in conference championship games. I don't care. Just get one, and then nobody will ever bring up the fact that you lost 8 other ones. Like, it won't even be brought up anymore. Like that. Like, seriously. And I seriously say too that the year that Avent wins the ACC championship, I hope, he just kind of goes out on top, because that is the one thing that's missing from his resume. That's the one thing that's missing from his resume, because he's done everything else. So, but yeah, so that's kind of.
He's more than likely going to hit 1,000
Yeah.
wins next year too. So, I mean, unless there's just a major collapse of a season, which none of us see that coming, but he's more than likely going to get to 1,000 next year. So, to your point, Leighton, 1,000 wins, maybe one, ACC championship banner, because I think we've had one or two regular season championships. I think during his time, we just never have won the tournament.
I'll have to go back and check that.
Do you know that for a fact, Justin? I think we have at least one during his time.
I don't think we have.
I don't think we have either.
I think it was 92 when we last won it.
91. No, 92.
Yeah, I thought maybe we had a regular season. I know we haven't won the ACC tournament. Yeah, 92 since we won the tournament.
I'm not sure about regular season.
I'm not sure about regular season.
I thought we had a number one seed in there at one point.
We were talking about us winning like an ACC baseball championship.
Mm-hmm.
I really do believe in 2020, if things didn't go the way they went, we probably could have won one, because that team was very good and talented and loaded.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and we had a hot start too, if I remember correctly.
All right, y'all. Well, again, with that being said, we will take a pause there for part one. So make sure to tune in for part two here as we start to talk about the players leaving, players that are coming in, kind of expectations for next year's team, what we're looking to kind of see some updates or changes for next year. And so make sure to, again, tune in with us for part two, and thank you all for tuning in for part one. Make sure again to hit that subscribe button so that way you are notified whenever we release new NC State content. Also to hit that notification bell so that way you're notified on all your devices when we go live or release new content. And then also to give this video a like if you don't mind as well, so that way NC State fans will see more of this content. And also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter or Instagram if you haven't already. But thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see y'all for part two. As always, go Pack, y'all.